So, let's talk about book events. Now, I was gonna put initially conventions, but then there's book signings and there's like panels and there's all sorts of like live event stuff. I have included um, the area of my book, how to build your creative career, about book events as well, which goes into more fine detail on this, both the PDF and the audiobook. And then we also have a book, how to make money at book events and signings or something like that, book conventions and live signings, which goes into it more. But like, I want to go over the overview of how to get the most out of book events. So I'm going to pass right through here. I've been starting when I do this presentation about COVID protocols. So like, I wore a mask. Well, I didn't wear a mask before COVID, but I did bring lots of sanitizer, wash hands often, kept a reader copy of books. I would not recommend doing shows until you're vaccinated plus 2 weeks, and then follow all the CDC guidelines, which now have changed. They'll be like, don't wear a mask or you don't have to do any of these things. But like, people used to think I was a germaphobe for bringing lots of hand sanitizer and washing my hands after every person I talked to. But I was able to not get sick for a couple of years before before COVID. And trust me, like, it's a germ infestation when it comes to conventions and live signings. And now nobody minds when you just pump and wash your hands. The only thing that I will say is, it is very hard to make money at shows when you wear a mask. I've seen sales drop by anywhere from 50 to 75%. When I wear a mask, compared to where I don't. Now, I'm a very like vocal and like personality-driven salesperson. So if your stuff is more aesthetic and oeuvre, maybe it would be less for you. But I have found that it's considerably harder to make money wearing a mask at shows. All right. That being said, let's talk about the purpose of shows. So there's several purposes, and yours could be 1, 2, 8, or even one's not on this list. So I always try and do all of these things when I go to a show. So meeting new fans, network with creators, see existing fans, maintaining relationships with vendors, building brands, and then having a good time. Like, these are my general purposes of a show. I try to do all of them in some level. Now, some shows in the past have been more money-making shows, and some have more brand shows. But if you have sort of know the purpose of every show, you can make even the worst show like successful, because even at my worst shows, I'm meeting creators and like building friendships, and some of my best friendships have come from the worst shows. And one of the best ways to use conventions is to stand out from a crowd. So there are millions of authors, there are thousands upon thousands that run ads, that have great books, and by going to a convention, you are going from millions of authors to hundreds of exhibitors to maybe dozens of authors, to focusing yourself so that you're one of very few people that have the chance to be in front of this group of people that are in front of you right now. And I think that it's so important to think about this in every aspect of your author career, which is, how do you stand out? And conventions are a literal way to be like, I am here standing in front of you. This is how I'm standing out from not all the vendors here, but all of the vendors who are not here. And then how do I differentiate myself from everyone else? It's what's on my table and how I'm interacting with you. So the most important part to remember is that people are coming to a show to have fun. You are an attraction, and you are part of an ecosystem, and your job is to make sure that they have a positive experience. Because if you have a good attitude and you think of people as more than a $20 bill, then you will make more money and people will like you more. And those two things are basically hand in hand. If you have a good attitude, people will think better of you. If you treat people as more than just a $20 bill, then like, they will like you more and be more likely to buy from you. No-nos. Don't look down at your phone. Don't ignore people that come to your table. Don't engage with about your projects with. Don't not. This is a very hard no. Make sure to engage with your products with some measure of enthusiasm, and don't avoid answering questions. In fact, it is great in the audio. We talk about actually how to do a pitch. And so a lot of this is how do you pre-answer questions that people are going to ask to put yourself in a position where you're not on your back on your toes by pre-filling objections, by asking close-ended questions, by getting little no's, little yeses that lead to one big yes. Now, it's very hard sometimes for people that are sick, have a disability, have a chronic illness to engage with your products with excitement. I know I have been sick at shows. I know I have been in pain at shows. I know I've had surgery and then had to do shows. And in all those things, it was much just harder to do with excitement. And some people's level of excitement just does not come through. I do think so that's the one that's like maybe just do your best, even if your best is 5%. But you absolutely can make sure that when someone comes to your table, you look them in the eye and you say hello and you answer any of their questions and you can give a pitch to your product, hopefully. Even if, you have somebody at your table that's giving it for them, or even if you have a little note card with stuff and stickies on them, like let them explore your table, but find a way to at least give them a little bit of you. Because what they're really buying is like a souvenir from the show. And like they want to buy from people that they like. It is not fair that people that can be more enthusiastic sell better than people that can't. But it is a sad truth about conventions that I've found, especially since the end of the pandemic. Let's talk about finding conventions and books. And book signings are a little bit easier because there's just less a flow of traffic there. But there are Facebook, Reddit forums. There are book-specific events and city-specific events. If you go onto your city's calendar, bookstores, libraries always have like a convention and like little events happening, and they know what's coming up. You can partner with them. Like, let's say your book revolves around, 4th of July. You could try and like host a book signing around that time with a library, set up a panel, do something along those sort of take the onus on yourself. But usually a bookstore or library is a great way to find the ones in your local community. And Facebook, Reddit, and other forums are a great way to find events that are a little bit further out. There's also a website called Convention Scene, which is pretty good. But honestly, a lot of this is just like finding a person in the know and then like using them to leverage what the bigger and bigger opportunities are. If you're in a city, big city like Los Angeles, there's probably one every weekend. And there are also ones that are focused on different areas, which is what we're going to talk about next, because bigger is not always better. I have spent $500. I've spent $500 on a booth. I've spent $5 on a booth. I've gotten a free booth, and so there are all sorts of ways that you can maneuver even a small budget, including splitting tables at shows, which we talk about in the audio book and the book. But my friend spends I think it's now $7,000 on a booth, on one Comic-Con booth, which works for him. I'd rather take that $7,000 and maneuver it around a bunch of shows. Although now I'm older, I'm less likely to be able to do 20 shows. So maybe doing a bigger show. I actually have focused on doing less shows, but focusing on each show and doing a bigger table at them all. And that hopefully will pay off fruitfully. I also still split tables with people. Doing a bigger table and then splitting it between 5 or 7 people is a great way to keep your costs down. But my goal at the beginning was to be at as many places as possible because I wanted people to just see that I was a part of that scene. So I would do 20, 30 shows a year, but I would be using the same money that most people spent on one event. And sometimes you want a big show, but other times you don't. And also there are different types of events. So I separate I do a lot of different stuff. So I do comic conventions, I do book conventions, I do writers conventions, I do horror conventions, I do manga conventions, I do anime conventions, I do I've done farmers markets, swap meets, bookstore signings, libraries, trade shows. I've done NAB. I've done basically all sorts of different shows, and the best. And sometimes you do a show and it's real bad. Sometimes you do a show and it's great. Sometimes you'll have a show that's 5,000 people and you make $5,000. Sometimes you do a show that has 50,000 people and you make $500. A lot of this is finding the kinds of stuff that is interesting and then trying it or finding other people who've done it and see whether they like it or not. Farmers markets and swap meets are great at the beginning, and bookstore signings so you can get your pitch down without a big cost. Also local conventions before you do those bigger and better conventions like Comic-Con. My first convention that I did, I think, was Comic-Con. At least when I was doing a signing. And so you can go right to the top, but you can also do smaller things too. And sometimes smaller things work, especially if you have like crochet things or like other kinds of stuff that you're doing about your world. Okay, so setting up your table for success. Convention sales are won and lost before the first person passes your table, and this is absolutely true. Your table speaks for you before you open your mouth and say a word. And with good design, even the shyest person can make sales. I have a friend who has marvelous design, several of them who have marvelous design, and all they do is they sit and they smile at people, and then people come and look at their books, they ask questions, and then they buy, and they do great at shows. So this is not, I happen to be a little bit more social and able to express myself a little more extrovertedly, but that does not mean that you can't have a wonderful design and make it work for you as well. This is, for instance, my style is more like, I have the books. You want books? I got books. If you want more books, I got books. You want other things that aren't books? Well, I got books. I like particularly this book, this picture, because it says Sell Nolte on it, and it's just the perfect. It says Russell, but like it just captured it perfectly. So let's talk about the pieces you need. We'll talk about books, merch, freebies, table drapes, banners, displays, and then some way to get a mailing list. So first things first, you need a table drape. Most tables just come with an 8-foot or 6-foot nothing. The bigger conventions do have a little, usually like a runner, like a colored runner around. But I like to have a table drape. You can get one for like less than $20 on Amazon or at Michael's. Just like a muslin table drape, black. I have done the ones like this one shows, the Sun Power with my logo on it. I just like the black one, honestly. And then what I do is I get a runner, which is a smaller one that goes down the middle of your table. So let's see, do I have one on here? This green would be a runner. It just runs down the middle. This one doesn't have it, but it runs down the middle of my table. And it like gives it a pop of like that color. So I black at the bottom, and then the runner is like 4 feet. And what's great is when I split a table with someone else, it's the perfect size for my whole table. Next, you're going to want a banner. Retractable banners like the one that say convention displays are about, they can go as little as $50. I would not spend more than $200, but they do go up to $500 plus. You can also order PVC pipe, which is sort of what's happening on the right. This one has this one I think looks like two, sort of like a photo background, so it's a little bit longer, and so it has a bar across it, and then they're hanging all of this at the back, and like that's also very good. You could also do a banner that's double the size, like a retractable that's double the size, and have it work here too. I tend to do these retractables because they're less space, and like I don't have to spend 45 minutes setting one up. But like I can't deny that we've been considering going to the bigger, longer one, like the one on the right hand side, because I really like that it's across the whole of your table. Here we go. There's a runner. Okay, so here's the display. So you can see these are just books, stacks of books that have and I'll show you in the next in a couple of slides, like there's a little wire behind them. There's some freebies. This is a runner. I have a better runner now than I did before, but you can see it's just a black muslin with like a little pop of color. I got this from Spoonflower. If you are a sewy kind of handy person, this is a great, like it's free to set up on Spoonflower, then you pay by the yard. I just am not a sewy human, so I could not sew the seams on here, and over time it just got a little bit ratty, so I'm upgraded to a little bit better, more heavy duty one. And then I have two banners in the back, one for my name, one for my company. If I'm ever splitting a table with somebody, I can just take one of these and only show one. So this is generally what we do at a table. And this is a pretty basic design. I'll show you a little bit more about design later, but I do like I usually have books on either side and then an alley between the two between the books, and then me in the back. That's kind of how I set it up. Or I used to set it up, and it's very easy. All you need is a retractable, or not even a retractable, just like something in the back, a black muslin, and then books and wire. That's it. I usually have bookmarks or like something here as well. But I traveled with this. I think this was a show in Ithaca, so you can see how it works. Okay, so displays. If you just want simple displays, this is a very good option. There's a resources tab that will. There's a resources thing in the course that has a link to this. This is it fits about 4 across and then 3 down deep. There's also much nicer ones. There are wooden ones, which, like, if you're really concerned with the aesthetics, you might want to go with the wooden one and like some wooden boxes, because this is so nice. This gives me height as an author so I can compete with artists. It's for trade shows. I have one now on either side of my booth, and that has books in it, and then some author copies at the bottom, just so people can see it high. So I have one of these on either side of my table, and then this in the middle of my table now. It's a little bit different, and I really only use that for big shows. And then these are the little wire hangers that have built my career. These little wire, I guess not hangers, but these little like wire displays. Like, I literally built my entire career with these displays. I've only moved up to doing this stuff recently. This is a 12-pack. It will get you through so many shows. Okay, so how many books to bring? I always bring the most copies of your bestseller. And if you have a series, bring 2 times more of book 1 than the other books. Now, I don't know how many to bring of book 1. I would say 10 or 20 is probably good of book 1. But if you only have the one book, I literally, when I started, would bring 100 copies of each one. And if it was a good show, it would sell out of both. I only had 2 books at the time. So for me, a good big convention is 20 books. Sorry, it's 20 books. It's between 100 and 200 books. Small show is about 10 to 20. So if I'm doing WonderCon, I'm bringing probably 300 or 400 books. If I'm going to a small show, I'm probably bringing like 1 or 2 boxes at max. My goal for a local show is 10x the table cost. So for a show like WonderCon, that's a $300 table, I'm looking to make $3,000 at it. If it's a travel show, I'm trying to double the travel expenses. So if it's $1,000 to travel and table at that show, I'm trying to make $2,000. And I set up my whole booth for not just the books, but also pins and other stuff, prints and other things that travel better, to make that money. So like you could fit 200 pins in a bag very, very easily, or prints. You can fit prints in just like one. They have like a portfolio. You can just fit a bunch of prints in there. They travel really nicely, and then set it up at your table. So it's not just on books; it's on all of the other things. How am I going to make that money back? I don't always get to the 10x or 2x. But by doing that, I set myself in a much better position than if I were to plan for like just breaking even or something. So if you are in multiple genres, bring the most copies of your main genre. But I do like bringing a couple of copies of other books. So I have a book that I drew, a couple books that I drew that I used to bring on my table, and they were surprisingly good sellers, even though they were sci-fi, because people really wanted just a book that I drew. And I would literally had a book. It was $10. I said, give me any amount of money for it. And a lot of people paid me more than what it was worth. Which I thought was weird, but like, bless those people. So I focus on the main genre, but a lot of times people are like, oh, I only read sci-fi or only read romance. And like, if you happen to have that, you can be like, here, just so happens I have that. And oftentimes people will buy that book. Okay, so this is a big thing when it comes to conventions and store signings. It is the opposite advice of Amazon. And I had to learn this the other way. People want unique at conventions. They want similar on Amazon, unique at conventions. They are looking for something that is a totem or an artifact from the show. So if you are doing books, really makes sense to do a unique cover for conventions, something that looks good. Even if you're just doing like that one book with a specific cover for conventions. I have a book that I only sell at conventions pretty much. It's called Worst Thing in the Universe. And I also have books that have convention exclusive covers. The more exclusive you can make it, the better. The more high end at shows, the better. People are okay spending $30, $40 at a convention. But you have to make it something that is worth their while. Okay, merch. I consider merch, pins, prints, buttons, other things that are good for making sales, but they are better for closing sales of other items. So, for instance, I have a lot of pins, but I very rarely sell pins. Normally what I'm doing is I'm bundling a pin with a book or with two books or something like that. So the prints and the pins and buttons and all of that stuff, like, they're great for closing the deals on your higher ticket items. I will often run a deal like my hardcover is usually $30. I'll do 2 for $40 with a pin, for instance, is a really good seller for me. I used to do the same thing with lanyards. It's like $10 for a lanyard, or buy 2 books or 2 books for $40 and you get the lanyard for free. My goal, and I think is a good goal for anyone, is try and get someone to spend $40 at your table. If your goal is to average $40 at your table, some people will spend $60, some people will spend $20. $40 means if you make basically 2.5 sales an hour, you'll make $100 an hour, and that is enough to have a monster show. But you have to be able to sell, let's say, a $60 or $80 item for $40 in order to do that. That's how most of my friends who make really good money at shows and are not superstars kill it at shows. They're bundling things together, but they have a number. It may be $80, maybe $100, maybe $20, but whatever that number is, you're trying to be like, okay, how do I get someone to spend $40? And it leaves you some flexibility to make sure your margins make sense. So I have books that are basically, I just have 5,000 books in my garage that are all paid for. So if I could sell books at a very low cost and still make money. I could sell 3 books for $40 and a pin. I could have all of these options working together, prints and such as well, that go towards reinforcing, making people spend that money at my table. Okay, then freebies. Okay, so there are 2 freebies you should consider. I don't think a flyer is great, but a bookmark is amazing. Flyers are fine, postcards are fine. I find for book people, books are amazing. Bookmarks are amazing. And what's great about a bookmark is you could just hold the bookmark in your hand and say, are you a book person? Would you like a bookmark? And then when they come for the bookmark, you can bring them into your universe and make your pitch. It's a very low stress way to sell. Just say, would you like a bookmark? Can I introduce you to a bookmark? And then, have you ever heard of my books when they come to your table? Would you like me to tell you a little bit about one of them? And a lot of times people will say yes, because they're probably searching through Artist Alley or through the convention hall to find something to buy anyway. So that's one side of free. The other side of free is some special print or pin you can give people who join your mailing list or buy your books. I have a pin that I only give to people who buy a book or are part of the mailing list, and it's sort of like you're in the club. You're in our club now. You're also going to need then a tablet or clipboard, because you want people on your mailing list. Whether you just do, there are a couple things you can do for mailing list delivery. You can ask people who come to your table to sign up. For instance, you could say, would you like to join our mailing? Like someone who is someone who says they're not going to buy. You can say, oh, would you like to join our mailing list? You get a free book for you. Like, we can send you a free book and you can check it out later. That's a really effective one. If you could just have it laying on the table. I don't love that. I like to point it out to people. Or you can do it where you're only offering the mailing list to people who are buying from you. That's what we've moved towards, offering it only as an incentive to people who buy from us. So we don't get as many people on our mailing list, but all the people that we get on our mailing list are buyers. And then the third way you can do it is, if you've listened to our viral giveaway overview, I would go around to a bunch of different tables before a convention, and I'd buy several copies of their best stuff, and I would offer them. I'd be like let's say it was a 3-day show, to get 3 copies of, I don't know, I spent like $200, and I would bring it to my table. I'd have like a little section on my table to be like, this is a giveaway. Sign up for a giveaway. Come back here at 5 o'clock, and someone is going to win who's here at 5 o'clock. And it worked great. We would get hundreds upon hundreds of people on that. It did distract from sales a little bit, but if you don't have a lot of sales, you can really do a lot. And my goal was, I knew who sold a lot at conventions and who had the same kind of audience as me. So I would have a book, but I'd also have like a print and like a little figurine and all of these things that were targeted to my main human that I knew other people that were at the convention already sold to. And so it really helped. We would get 500 or more emails in a day. It was nuts. It was great. I loved it. We're probably going to move towards doing something more like that this year. But yeah, so you can either do a giveaway. You could offer the mailing list to everyone who comes to your table, or you can do it exclusively to just people who buy from you. But at some point, you need to have something, and you are going to need something because you want them to sign up even if they're using cash. So even if you're like, well, I'll just get their emails in my app, that's not going to be good enough. If you have a tablet, you can download MailChimp Subscribe. I'm hoping that still exists. When you're listening to this, you can also just have a Google Sheet open, or you can have a clipboard. The good thing about the clipboard is you can use it even if there's nothing else, even if you have no internet. The bad part is it is hard to read people's writing, and you have to do it manually. But clipboard's also great. You can also bring a clipboard to a panel that you're having and pass it around there. When I do that, I usually am saying, we're going to do a talk, or like I have a course, or I have a book on X topic. If you want that, then sign up for a mailing list and I'll send it to you afterwards, after the show. And that works out really well. We did this at 20 books last year and got like 500, I don't remember, a lot of emails. It was like 300 to 500 emails doing that. All right, let's talk about design. So this is on the left, you have my full table design. It's a little bit, this is an 8-foot table, so it's able to stretch out a little bit more. But I still have that alley in the middle towards me, and then books on either side of that alley, and then sort of freebies in the middle. This is a half table. You can see what I said last time about about when I have a half table, that runner becomes my whole table, which is great. You can see now there's two books. There's two rows of books, freebies, and Ally in the middle. So I usually will like stagger this a little bit better, where like the front book has the lowest shelf, and then the back book has the highest shelf. But I just happen to have a lot more books of my most popular book. I also want the most popular book in the front, highest. So like it takes a little bit of work, especially when you have a half table to make this work. I'll show you a little bit more about my ideal setup in a second. But here's some other examples. You can see this is a really lovely example of a convention banner. This is my friend Melissa at the bottom. She's one that like really just sets up a really lovely table and smiles and like and is very pleasant. My friend Naomi is very similar. Look at my friend Naomi in the bottom middle. She has this lovely setup, very inviting to bring people in. I remember the first time I saw both Melissa and Naomi's work, I was like, what is this? Like, I literally stopped in front of Naomi's table and was like, what is this, and why have I never seen that before? On the bottom left, this is a pretty busy setup, but like, you know, it's got a lot of options for people to stop in and look. As they're looking, you can then be behind there talking and chatting about your own work, trying to draw them to the right place. Above that is an artist, and in the middle at the top is like more like just a publisher booth. So there's a lot of options. Here's my ideal. A banner behind you, then you, and then the clipboard and your freebies on the opposite side of your table as you for signups. I like to have the freebie also on the edges so people can pick it up really easily. And then some merch. I have pins, so I have a little I have a little frame with all of our pins in it, which is really nice. And I have one on either side of our booth. And then books. I like them to be staggered. So most popular books in the front, and then other books in the back. Like other genre maybe books in the back, or something that to catch people who aren't going to fall to be the people that are in your book, your main book. So like this, the front of your table needs to be focused a lot on like your main series and pushing your main series. But if you have other things that are outside of that mainstream, sci-fi, if you write fantasy, or romance, if you write mystery, whatever it is, have these in the back so you can capture more people and stagger them so people can still see them, but they aren't the focus of your booth or what you're trying to design for. It's good to have these ones in the back a little bit obscured so the wrong people don't come up. And by wrong, I mean just the people that aren't going to love your main series. But it is good because you are there to make money, to say if someone likes you. Like I had the book How to Build Your Creative Career. A lot of people come to my panels and say, oh, like I loved your thing, but they wouldn't read comics, or they wouldn't read the kinds of books that I had. And so I had the nonfiction book literally just to capture them. I had a mystery novel that captured a lot of people. I had the book that I drew that captured a lot of people. It's all about being focused on. So when you're doing, for instance, a Kickstarter or a direct sales offer, you have like the main offering, and then you have, would you like to complete the collection with all these other books? And that's what I'm saying in the back. So if you have 10 books, you won't be able to do this. But if you're sitting at like 3 or 4 books, or at a small event, this is really effective. And you can very easily cut out the edges. So the free merch, the 2 frees and one of the merches, and make, and if you have a half table, bring this down to something that is much more manageable. It's scalable for full table. It's scalable for a half table, a down for a half table. I really like this setup. It's how I built my business. It's different now, how we set up the table, and I still think this is the best setup that I've ever done. Okay, so pricing. So it's really hard to make money without charging $20 for a book. Put $15. Really, it's $20. And really, if you can get $40 for like a bundle, that's the best you're going to do. My friend charges 15, and he does really well at shows. He gets a lot of comp tables though. I think $20 for a book, and I usually just do $30 for a hardcover, and then 2 for $40 for hardcovers. But I get my hardcovers for $3 a book. If you can't get that amount because you're not printing at volume, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do the $30 because of how much it costs to do a hardcover, unless you're doing like a 1,000 book run. So I recommend 20 for a soft cover, 30 for a hardcover. And then pins and prints, I charge somewhere between $10 and $20. I think that for those things, 10 and 3 for 20 is a really good a bundle price. And then smaller buttons, I usually don't have smaller buttons. I'm looking because they just don't have very good margins unless you have your own button press. And I don't have the energy to do a button press. This is also where exclusive comes in. So if, let's say, you have books and they're usually $10, you might be able to do a omnibus bundle with a special cover on it or something for $20, or something that you can only get at the show, or even $40 to have like an exclusive cover. I see people like Zenescope is a company that made their living on shows, and they would charge $25 for the same book you could for an exclusive cover of the same book you can get in the store for $2. It's like, this is the exclusive of this particular show. You can't get it anywhere else. And or just this is an exclusive print that you can only get at conventions. Like I said, I had a book called Worst Thing in the Universe. I had several prints that you could only get, and they were $10, or you could get them for free if you spent X amount of money. The most successful sales tactic is bundling, which means selling multiple books and products for a better price. If you offer premium pricing, you could bundle even more for less money, which is why premium pricing is so important. It gives you better margins. Better margins mean you can bundle things together. If one book is $30, two book is $40, why would you not spend the extra $10? If I'm also going to throw in a pin or a print or something for $40, now it's like a no-brainer to like get that, especially if you like one book. I do not bundle generally my soft covers because they cost more than my hard covers. My hard covers cost $3, my soft covers cost $6 to $8, and usually I've paid off all of my hard covers, so I'm much more aggressive at selling my hardcover books. Yeah, so, but I guess I just realized I could probably do like paperbacks for 20, and then if you get 2 paperbacks, you can get a hardcover for free or something like that. All right, so I talked about this. The less expensive your book is, the less margin you have and still make a profit. If you charge more, you offer bigger discounts, more value, more likely to get people to buy on impulse. Okay, so I have 3 tricks for you. One we kind of talked about. The first is the bookmark trick. Stand behind your table, hold out a bookmark, ask, would you like a bookmark? As they're holding the bookmark, before you release the bookmark, ask, have you heard about any of my books? If they say no, that's when you can start to go into your pitch. Would you like to? What's your favorite type of book? Just sort of go into it. I prefer to ask what's your favorite type of book than would you like to, because what's your favorite type of book is an open-ended question that gets them being like, oh, I like fantasy, or who's your favorite author, or something like that. Allows me to be like, oh, well, have you ever heard about our book series, The Godsverse Chronicles? Because like it's fairy tales, and anyway, down the line. It allows you to go to your pitch, which we talk about a lot in the book. Which you can get to in this lesson also. Part 2 is the question trick. The question trick, which is stand behind your table, ask people are they a reader. They say yes, say what's your favorite book, and then launch into your relevant sales pitch. This is really good when paired with the bookmark trick. Or the free drawing trick. So I made my living doing free drawings for the first year I was in business, which was people pass my table. I ask, would you like a free crappy drawing? When they stop and say yes, I gave them an option. I said, do you like witches or ghosts? Do you like werewolves or mummies? Whatever they said, I would do a quick sketch on a sketch card that I had printed up that had my web address on it. And I would hand it to them. And while I was doing the sketch, I would ask them about their book. I'd ask them if they want to sign up for a mailing list, why they were there, built a relationship with them. And people often, even without asking, would either tip me or ask me about a book or buy something from me. Because you're there, you're giving them something, you're part of the experience. Okay, so here is generally the sales funnel trick. It's the sales funnel, and what you need a lot of people at the top of your funnel, which is why you go to shows. So a lot of people will be passing by your table. These are all potential leads. They're leads because they have already chosen to be there. So they're not just random on the internet. They're passing by your table. So there are a lot of leads. So you need to get those leads into prospects. And that is where you use one of the strategies or when you develop. The people that stop by your table are prospects. Then you have customers. And so lots of people pass your table so that 1 in 10 of those stops. So in 1 of 10 of those buys. So you need to basically be prospecting pretty consistently at your table, either by yourself, using one of the tricks, by hiring someone, by having just really great design to filter out the right prospects who will become customers. And this is why you need to have all of these systems in place because if your average sale is $5, well, if you make 10 customers, that's only $50. If you sell 10 customers $40, that's $400. So you have to go into this being like, how do I maximize the amount of money that someone is going to spend with me? Because even if I do a great job, I'm not going to get everyone to stop, and I'm not going to get every one of those to buy. Okay, how to pitch a book. There's more about this specifically in the in the audiobook and in the book. It's attached to this section. But here are some options. Here are some options for how to pitch books well. The most important thing that you can do is the optional close. Optional close is that you only give somebody 2 questions. A question that has 2 answers. Are you, hi, do you like books? Yes or no? Do you like, it's so funny. It says never ask yes or no questions. But which do you like more, fantasy or sci-fi? Okay. And then you keep asking these little questions that get people to buy in. And the more little ways you can get them to buy in, the more likely they are to buy. There's a thing in sales called, which is about the little yeses, which is you get them to say yes, 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 yes. And it's every time you get them to say yes, you buy them in a little more. So the more questions you get them to ask or answer, the better it's going to be. I'm not going to go through the packing the con kit part of this because it's in the resources guide. But I will say that one of the best things that you can do at a convention is try to speak at every stage you can. The more times you speak, it is another way to separate yourself from the crowd. And then the more times you do that, the more likely you are to speak at another show, and the more likely they are to comp your table. The best way to get a comped table is to go in through programming, and because programming needs people to talk, and they have a lot of leeway with how many tables they give out. And if you can show that you're an asset, then they will likely put you on several panels or allow you to speak on several panels. At the beginning, you're going to have to probably pay your way and then get on get on the panel. But over time, you'll make relationships. They'll realize that you are valuable, and especially if you're able to do workshops, then you will end up getting a lot of comps if you ask for them. So ask the con organizer about panels. They'll probably send you to the panel chair, and then organize your own panel, organize workshops. I have about 9 workshops that I run in all these shows, including this one. It's a great way. It's been a great way to build my brand and separate myself, because I've now done hundreds of these panels, and at all sorts of shows from every level, from like local conventions and libraries all the way up to San Diego Comic-Con. And it's just been, every time somebody puts you on their stage, they are endorsing you a little bit. They're saying you should listen to this person. And so I have just a spreadsheet and a JPEG of all of the places that I've spoken. And when someone asks me about it, I'm just like, here's all the people that have trusted me to speak on their stages before. And again, it's a great way to get comp tables as well. One thing I will tell you is I have on multiple times walked up to a panel before it started and said, hey, do you have room for one more? I'm an expert on this. And you'd be surprised at how many times I've gotten on a panel, like dozens of panels I've gotten on. Why don't you go back before, because I don't think I did a good job on this, because this tripped me up. Optional closing is about not asking open-ended questions. So you were asking a question that only has 2 answers. This does not mean you cannot ask yes or no questions. It does say never ask yes or no questions, but it is better to ask, do you like sci-fi or fantasy? Do you like girls that kick butt or psychological mind screws? Questions that don't have a no. What you really don't want is a no. It's you want a yes. And every time someone answers a question, it's basically a yes. But you don't want a question where if someone can answer no, which is why you say, oh, do you like Battlestar Galactica or Star Trek more? Then someone can say, well, neither. And then they probably are Star Wars fans. So if you give them 2 questions, 2 answers, and they say no to both, they're like, I don't really like either of them. Be like, oh, so is it Star Wars? Is that your main thing? You can then just ask a follow-up. But your goal is every time they answer a question, you do not allow them the opportunity to say no. This is not the greatest worded slide, I'm realizing. But the idea is never have a question where someone can answer no. You're always asking questions that have 2 options, and if they don't answer yes to those options, then you know the only third option is this, is some other thing. For instance, the Battlestar, I know people could say Farscape and other thing, but probably it's going to be Battlestar Galactica or Star Trek, and then Star Wars or something. Probably you're not going to, and also you're probably going to, Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek are pretty similar. Except the nihilistic question versus the hopeful question, probably going to ask Star Trek or Star Wars. And if they say no, then it's Battlestar Galactica or Farscape or some other thing. But all of these questions should be leading you towards picking a book to tell them about. So for instance, if you say Girls That Kick Butt or Psychological Mind Screws, and they say Psychological Mind Screws, I'm going to pick up Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter, and I'm going to talk about that. They say Girls That Kick Butt, I'm going to pick up the Godsverse Chronicles. Or I might say, oh, you like Girls That Kick Butt? Okay, so fairy tales or Portal Fantasy? And if they say either, I'm going to then make a choice between the Godsverse Chronicles or the Obsidian Spindle Saga. But every time I get them one more layer deep, like Inception, it's more likely that they're going to buy from me. Because I'm spending the time getting to know them and what they like. And if not, they're probably going to sign up for my mailing list or know somebody else that really likes the book. Also, I get a lot of that, oh, this isn't really my thing, but I know my cousin really loves this stuff. So I want to I this tripped me up. It's been a couple of months since I did this deck, and I don't know why I worded it like this, but that is the idea behind this: is you do not want to ask a question that can get a no. Okay, the con kit we talked about. Okay, so if you want to, so this will help you not only stand out, but can help you actually get free tables and stuff and lower the cost of your tables. You can also split tables. I'm a pretty successful convention person. I still split tables. It's the easiest way to cut your costs in half. Now, if you're going to like another state or something, probably not going to save you that much because you still have to, unless you're traveling with someone who will then split the gas, split the room, split the table, all of that stuff. It's probably not great to save like $100 by just splitting the table. But I have both split tables and then split rooms and other things and kept my table. And I've done both things. So like, again, it's all about if you have a finite amount of resources, figure out a way to like extend them. And the best person to split tables with was I would split tables. I used to not have very much or any family friendly stuff at my table. So I would partner with people that had all ages monster content. And then we would do monsters for the whole family. And it became, they were focused on kids. I was focused on adults. And we would split and we would like have a bundle of both things together. We would cross sell each other's work. And those worked great. Also having someone who was in a similar but slightly not the same genre, so maybe like a fantasy romance person and like a fantasy author. What did not work very well was having authors who had wildly different things where there was no way to cross over. When I started doing this, I worked with a comedy writer, and there was almost no overlap between his fans and my fans. And it was great to split tables and split rooms and like get like freebies and things, because we could then like leverage the fact that like there were people that we both know in San Diego and other things. But it was actually the actual sales process was very hard because there was no overlap. Other ways to keep costs down: drive instead of fly, or stay only local. Carpool, split tables, choose smaller shows. Stay away from conventions that can verify attendance. I like shows that they're either in their first year, because those are often surprises. They're often way better than any other year, the first year shows, or shows that have been 3 years and then can verify attendance. Print fewer books, get less merch, bring your own food and water. When you go out, just get water or get one drink. There's all sorts of ways to bring down your costs. Eat just less good. Like eat less well. Like eat lower on the hog. And just like probably the best thing you can do is choose smaller shows at smaller tables or split costs. Find places you can go that you can stay with somebody. All right, only 2 slides left. The first is about taking payments. So I take payments in a couple of ways: cash, Square, PayPal. You can also Venmo. You can send invoices as well. You can have people buy from your website and show you that they purchased. There's all sorts of ways. I think the easiest is just like a Square card reader. And cash. Those are the easiest ones, but often people ask me about Venmo or PayPal, and I take those as well. Because of how my stuff is set up, if you buy cash from me, I don't charge tax because I'm always doing it like $20, $40, $60. But I do charge tax on credit card payments. I still pay the tax on the cash. I just don't want the like 37 cents of like, it's just people tend to not have like $3. I would just rather take their like straight cash than like have them have to think about it for even a second. And finally, just taxes. Convention sales are taxable, as is all revenue. Um, unless your event says otherwise, talk to an attorney. They're paid, or the state, city, county where your event was held. Usually, most states require a vending permit. Talk to somebody. Talk to your local. Here, it's the Franchise Tax Board, but talk to people. Talk to an attorney. Talk to other vendors who've done the show before. Don't just take my word for it, because I am not an attorney. I am not an accountant. I take no responsibility for these things. So and also I've only done shows in a dozen states. So there are so many states, countries, municipalities. Even in California, I've only done conventions in like a handful of counties. I don't know how every single county works. And even in Long Beach, where I live, sometimes when you do an outdoor thing, they have different permitting rules than indoors. There are different taxes that you need. So every event is different. You really have to like do your work on here and be diligent. That said, that's basically my thing about conventions. I'm sorry for kind of rambling there in that one slide. Hopefully it made sense to you when I went back to it. And yeah, hope that helped.